to order at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. And this is a special meeting, so we'll only discuss items that relate to the COVID-19 pandemic response or issues there derived therefrom. So I would like to just mention that please mute your phone when you're not speaking. You've been very good, and thank you for saying over, and we'll do roll call. I will also read this for the public and for all of us in regards to meetings attended by telephone due to COVID-19 pandemic. For the public, just to let you know that we have gone through a roll call to make sure that all the commissioners are present and connected with us at this time. The first concern regarding the telephone conference is it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota Chapter 12, Statute 13D021, Subdivision 1-1. Second statement, we have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting, another statute. Thirdly, we have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and have ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. Fourth, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for County Attorney Brady Powers, County Auditor Brady Powers, County Attorney Molly Hicking, County Administrator Rena Rogers, and members of the Board of Commissioners to be physically present at the County Board room at the Cook County Courthouse. And lastly, all votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded according to statute. So with that, I would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please mute your phone and join me silently or verbally to the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, at this time, I'm going to ask for any adjustments to the agenda. They have to be specific to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I'll do a roll call on that, and we'll start with Commissioner Starley. Do you have any additions to the agenda?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, do you have
Over.
any additions to the agenda?
I do not, no. Over.
Okay. Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. I do not have any additions to the agenda. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner Duker?
I do not have any additions to the agenda. Over.
Thank you. And Commissioner DeShaw?
No additions. Over.
Okay, I do not as well. Very good. Then we will entertain a motion, if there's no further discussion, to approve the agenda as stated and published.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to adopt the agenda as published. Over.
Thank you. Do we have a support or second?
Support. Over.
Commissioner Dukirk, second. Over.
Okay, I think I heard Commissioner DeShaw first. And so if there's no more discussion, I'll do a roll call vote on approving the agenda. Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Starley?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Bersheimer? Aye. Unanimous. So we do have the public comment period. Is there anyone in the audience in the courthouse that is there to speak this morning?
This is Rena. No, there's not.
Okay. Have we received any emails or any written discourse on expressing views for public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So we'll go on to our first agenda item, is the Emergency Operations Command Incident Commander Team. Update from Grace Grinager and Mike Keyport, and a special thanks to you two for just all the work that you've done. I'm just hearing confidence in the community for where we're at and preparing, so you're really the key people to get that going. So who would like to start for this update?
I'm happy to start. This is Grace.
Okay, Grace. Go ahead, Grace. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to give updates this morning. I'm happy to be here and to let you all know what we've been working on and answer any questions that you all might have. So I will start off by giving a case count. As of April 6th, 2020, there were 935 lab-confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 29 related deaths in the state of Minnesota. Last week, the number of lab-confirmed cases was 576. 2 weeks ago, it was 169. 3 weeks ago, it was 35. There continue to be severe limitations to testing capabilities throughout the state, so these figures continue to be a very low estimate of the actual cases in Minnesota. Also, because of the disease progression, the time between exposure to the virus, exhibiting symptoms, seeking a test, and getting the results back, the numbers usually could be considered what was happening a week or two in the past. So I just want to have that out there as context for what these numbers mean and what they can tell us, as well as what they cannot tell us. In terms of the county EOC, this past week, we continued to refine our structure. I did email out our current organizational chart for detail for the reference of the commissioners, and we continue to meet 5 days a week for briefings from EOC leadership in order to maintain situational awareness and remain aware of and responsive to the changing needs of the community. I have highlights from the different areas within the EOC of activities that have taken place over the last week. So as you all know, the Community COVID-19 Resource Hub website has been updated every day with latest local news. This past week, it added a way for businesses to update their information on the site, which Rena Rogers, in her role as the community liaison for the EOC, she worked with Jim Boyd to communicate this to local businesses so they're able to go onto the site and update whether they're open, closed, and any additional considerations for customers and the public. The Grocery Finder app added regularly updated photo inventories of what each of the 3 largest grocery stores has on its shelves. Mike Keyport is working with Benny Silence in his role as the Volunteer Responder Liaison Officer, and Dr. Terrell, the Medical Director for Sawtooth Mountain Clinic and the Ambulance Service, to organize a Zoom training on COVID-19 and best practices for infectious disease control as a first responder. This session will take place on April 8th. Matthew Baxley, in his role with the Behavioral Health Response to COVID-19, is producing a series of daily mental health tips, which are posted on the PHHS Facebook page, as well as on the COVID-19 Hub site. Hartley Newell-Lucero, in her role with community education, produced a video on how to clean and disinfect in the age of COVID-19, which is posted to the clinic's Facebook site. She also produced a topic of the month called How to Help, which focuses on how to help others and oneself to cope during the pandemic. In the areas of isolation and quarantine and essential services, I worked with the clinic to clarify the areas of public health responsibility, which are supporting isolation and quarantine through providing essential services, and MDH's responsibility, which would be to conduct interviews with lab-confirmed positive cases and to do something called contact tracing, which involves interviewing people who've been in close contact with positive cases and advising them what measures they should take, whether they should quarantine or whether they're considered to be a lower risk contact and no quarantine is needed. I also began some preliminary conversations with representatives of the lodging community in the role of providing essential services if anyone were to need shelter support to maintain isolation or quarantine. That would fall on the county to facilitate. And so I've had some preliminary conversations as to what that might look like and how we might partner with the lodging community to offer those services. So there's nothing really that's been figured out completely, but we've at least started the conversation as to how we might be able to provide that service if it is needed. Andrea Orist, in her volunteer management role, continues to work with area grocery stores to provide volunteers to assist with the new curbside pickup and delivery only service model. She's working to refine the volunteer orientation materials and to reach out to the management of each store to learn how we can better understand and support their public health and safety needs during the pandemic. Kay Grenland, in her role supporting transportation needs in the community, has worked to brainstorm ways that we can safely provide limited transportation assistance to community members in need, and to do so safely for both passengers and drivers. We will be meeting later today to discuss what she has found. Kirk Oberg and Leah Ekstrom in the planning section of the EOC have been working to develop a Teams site that will serve as the organizing platform for the EOC to function in the virtual realm. We've received a number of material donations from community members, including hand-sewn masks, N95s, surgical masks, and gowns. Plowman, in his role as donations manager, is working to coordinate drop-offs and acting as a liaison to the medical campuses to transfer donations to them. Lori Erickson has joined the EOC as the Chief Logistics Officer. She will be providing leadership to the areas in the logistics area, which include transportation, volunteers, and donations, and to the staff working in those areas. We also began conversations with Sawtooth Mountain Clinic, North Shore Health, and the North Shore Healthcare Foundation about the foundation facilitating monetary donations to the medical response efforts related to COVID-19. And finally, we now have a set rotation on WTIP on COVID-19 coverage between myself representing County Public Health and the EOC on Mondays, the Sawtooth Mountain Clinic on Wednesdays, and North Shore Health on Fridays. And that's just one way that we can keep the public informed on what's happening here locally. And that is all I have for updates. I'm happy to answer any questions from the commissioners at this time.
Okay. Thank you so much. Boy, that's an extensive list of things that are being done. It sounds like they're very, very worthwhile and trying to keep us ahead of the curve as much as we can, or at least not too far behind.
I think it's been really key to bring people in. So there's many people now supporting the EOC efforts, and that's been really key at increasing what we can accomplish. So I'm grateful for everyone's support.
So much better working together. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
So let's do a roll call for any questions or comments that you would have for Grace Grinager. And thank you again so much for all you're doing. We'll start with Commissioner Mills.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Mills. I don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay.
Just wanted to, my only comments are just that it's so incredible and impressive, the systems that have been put in place, how systematic the response has been, how well you've built the team up, and just the various roles of each member of the team. It's very impressive. Gives me a lot of confidence in our community's ability to deal with this pandemic, and I just really appreciate all the work that you've put into it. Over.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Commissioner Storley, questions, comments?
I have no question, but I certainly have a comment of appreciation for Grace and the team and really everybody. You know, when I look around and I see how people are cooperating and giving information and working together to inform the public with how we can support local people and do errands and all that type of thing. It's very heartwarming. So thanks to Grace and team for leading us. Over.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Commissioner Duker?
Hey, Grace, I've got a couple of questions on the Facebook videos that Matt is doing. Can we see if WTIP would be willing to do a link or a connection? Our mental health group has been working on the first Thursday in May, which is mental health awareness, but we were also talking about what can we do right now during COVID, and so not everyone has access to Facebook. Do you think that's a possibility?
Absolutely. I know Matthew has also been on WCIP, and I'm not entirely sure what the plan is for him continuing to be there, but I think asking them to link to the videos is absolutely a possibility, and I know that he's interested in finding other ways to make sure that his content is accessible.
They're great videos. And then another question, there have been people coming into the community, and it appears that Duluth is still renting hotels and they haven't taken the action to close. And so there was recently a citizen who came in and couldn't find a place to stay because all of our resorts have been very lovely in helping out. Is there any way to reach out and figure out, I mean, can we in any way say that if they come in the community, they have to stay for 2 weeks at a hotel? Or I don't know that there's anything we can do. It's a strange thing.
Are you referring to like a tourist who might come here and be looking for a place to stay? Or someone who comes to the community to live?
No, somewhat a tourist. There was just a tourist that stopped and picked up gas and was telling the people at the gas station that they couldn't find any hotels open, and they were from Iowa, and Iowa doesn't have any quarantine, and they had no idea that the state of Minnesota had an advisory. They didn't know Cook County had an advisory. They didn't understand what to do, and the staff were trying to explain to them that, you know, you really should do a self-quarantine for 14 days. And it seems that the tourists ended up just leaving because there was nowhere to go.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult situation, and communication within the community is one thing, but communication to folks who might be coming here to visit or returning to a second home, it's difficult to know the best way to reach those populations would be. I mean, I think we've done a lot with local media, but whether those segments of the population would get local media is unclear. I'm certainly open to suggestion to figuring out better ways to reach out and make sure that people who are visiting are getting the relevant information they need to take into account health and safety concerns. I'm not sure I have a great answer for you, but it's definitely something I'm willing to think through.
Okay. I know you're talking to resort owners, so when you talk to them, maybe if you guys want to just have the conversation, and maybe there are a few resorts that have the staff and the ability to do a 2 week and they're willing to do it, and they, you know, then maybe we just have the information out there that says maybe a resort has the availability if you want to come here and stay and you're willing to do a 14-day stay in place, this is where you can go. I don't know if they even want to do it. It takes a lot of staff to do cleaning afterwards.
Yeah, not sure. I think it's a good conversation to have with the lodging community.
Great. Thank you so much. And yeah, and that's all my questions over. I'll let Commissioner Mills chime in.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, this is Commissioner Mills, and I kind of feel like that Whereas I think that the quarantine is, of course, very important. If we sent that message that come here and stay, but it has to be for 4 weeks, that's a mixed message for versus staying at home. And so I feel like it's most important that everybody stays at home, and we really drive that message home. And if we can work with Visit Cook County, because their reach is far and wide, to bring people here, if we can work with them to ask people to please stay home during this pandemic, or at least during the state's stay-at-home order, as well as our county's travel advisory. I think that might be a more effective way to deal with the issues. But that's just my 2 cents. Over.
Dave, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but there are people that, clearly they're still coming here. They don't know, they're not getting the message. And I think the responsible thing is to have an answer for them or have an option for them. Obviously, we're not going to market, hey, you can come here, but you have to stay. But if you look at the news internationally and look at people, there's a couple that was on their honeymoon and they're stuck on an island. So if someone is here, if they've arrived, they're already coming into the community and exposing themselves to us, and they're here. So obviously I don't want to market and say, oh, come here and quarantine, come here and be on your own. Oh, if you don't feel good, this is the place to be. But I want to have that option available if somebody has arrived here, rather than just putting it on the businesses to say, they're stressed out, they're uncomfortable, they're scared and afraid themselves, they're required to provide services, and they're reacting in fear and anger and saying, just get the hell out of our community. And that's not the message that we should be sending to people. We don't want to say, you're not welcome here, but once you're here, what do we do with you? Over.
Okay, thank you. Just going forward, I'd remind you, I would ask that we go through the roll call so every commissioner can speak, and then we can I'll just ask for further comments, because then I think we started out with that understanding. So I'd ask that we do that going forward. Thank you. Commissioner DeShaw?
Yeah, this is a great, very thorough report, but only thing I'd like to add to it would be if we could get up in your case count there, if we could get the amount of people that have recovered from this would be a helpful number for people to see also.
Sure, I could definitely add that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, so does anyone else? I have no comments except just really to commend you, Grace, for all the work. That's pretty impressive, what has been done, and I know that it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of collaboration, and it takes a lot of leadership and a sense of purpose, and also trying to get us to work together as a community. Boy, it's really impressive. So thank you so much. So at this time, I'd ask if there's any more questions or comments, and that will be open. So just say your name and then make your statement. Okay, none? Very good. Thank you. We have Mike Keyport next. Thanks to you personally for all your work, Mike. I know I witnessed it, I don't know, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago we talked on the weekend, and you went into work all weekend as well as others. So thanks for getting all this going and working with your co-commander, Grace. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Board of Commissioners and community members. Yeah, it's certainly been interesting. No day is the same anymore, and that's all right. We're doing what we're trained for. Thank you, Grace, for your comprehensive report. I would just start by saying, I'm sure you all know I've only been in as a county employee for, I think it's right around 7 months, and I'm working virtually with Cook County staff members that I've realistically never met in person. So it's an interesting concept. But in a short amount of time, we've all pulled this together very well. Cook County has been ahead of the game on a lot of things, including our travel advisory. I get comments from other counties saying, hey, how'd you do that? That was a great idea. We were the first in our region to put out our hub webpage, if you will. I think we're all doing well. From an emergency management standpoint, from anything that Grace didn't cover, is I'm continuing to meet daily with our 11 county region. And that's important because I can learn what other counties are doing rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. We all learn from each other. Then twice a week I meet with the state of Minnesota. That meeting's Tuesdays and Thursdays, so this afternoon I meet with them, and that gives us up-to-date, right, direct as to what the state's doing, and we can ask questions or whatever we need to know and to move forward. As Grace mentioned, of course, we have our EOC briefings daily at 4 o'clock, and that's really the information sharing piece that helps us move forward to the next operation period, and it's without it we couldn't, we just couldn't move forward. The ECN, which stands for Emergency Communications Network, that's the piece of the government that governs our communications as to armor radios, cell services, our 911 capabilities. They are now sending us emergency managers a situation report daily that tells us, if our 911 systems are holding up, and they are, and as to our major cell carriers, because people are at home using more technology than normal, and thus far we're holding our own. So that's good news. As you know, the governor declared a state of emergency in the middle of March 13th. He on Sunday wrote a letter to President Trump declaring a federal declaration, or requesting, I think is the right word. What that means is that he's anticipating that the state of Minnesota will exhaust its funding and ways to keep the response going for this public health emergency. So he's just trying to get ahead of the game. Other states have done the same thing. That he just did that on Sunday, April 5th. We will likely get that request. What that means for us on a more local level is when this has happened in the past, when the state declares for federal assistance, it can mean that instead of me reporting our costs for reimbursement to the state of Minnesota, we would go directly to FEMA. Ideally, we would go directly to FEMA. In the past, that hasn't worked. The FEMA programs for reporting are not as user friendly as the state one. So in the past, FEMA asked to report to FEMA, and we went back and reported to the state. So more to come on that. One thing in the conversations I was hearing, I did ask, thank you, Commissioner Deschamps, for including the recovered numbers. I think that's important. I asked for that at our daily briefings because I think sometimes you got to look at the good and not just the bad numbers. One more thing I'll add is that I was listening to MnDOT on the radio this morning, and the show must go on, and they are still going to be doing our construction on Highway 61 this very year. So my question, as I was listening, as to Commissioner Dukirk's concerns is that these construction workers are going to need a place to stay too. I don't know where that falls, but I don't know if it's the Chamber of Commerce or Visit the County needs to reach out, but we are, things like that, we have to consider and look ahead because construction season is here, and we definitely have to be prepared. It's not necessarily an EOC function, but it's certainly something for our government and our community to consider. I think that's all I have for you folks this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So any questions or comments? We'll start with Commissioner Shaw.
No questions. Thanks for your work, Mike.
Okay. Commissioner Duker?
No questions. Thank you for your work, Mike, and thank you for thinking ahead. It's a tough position we're in, and we never want to tell people that they aren't welcome here, but we do need to protect not only our community, but the people visiting here, and we want everyone to be safe and healthy. Over.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. I don't have any questions. Mike, thank you for your work, and I especially appreciate the updates with just regional partners and hearing what else is going on. And it's great to hear that our team is ahead of things and willing to lead, and just appreciate that, so thank you. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner Storley? Commissioner Storley?
I'm here. Wrong button. Thanks, Mike, for your work and thinking ahead. That's really important. I think road construction is around the corner for sure, and golly sakes, they do need a place to stay. And for your communication, with the region and the state, much appreciated. Thanks. Over.
And I don't have any questions or comments, but just accolades and thank you for all you're doing and the work that you're doing. I know I had a chance, I was out for a walk the other day and at a distance, had a chance to talk to Jim Linneman, sort of did reiterate what you were saying, that we have a wonderful county connection with the others, these 11 regional counties, and it sounds like it's a very functional group, though. So that's another asset we have and going forward. So any other questions or comments for Mike Keyport? Okay. We'll go to our interim administrator, Rena Rogers.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing. I know you've been working long and hard for many weeks now, and we're really doing very well, I think, with all aspects of our county government and making sure that we're doing meaningful and productive work. So it's your time to talk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So I think as I reported last week, we met the governor's stay-at-home order. Our timing was very good on that. We have pretty much everybody working at home that can work at home. And I get out there and kind of check online, and I can see that they're out there. People are showing up at meetings, and we're doing all of our meetings, either Skype meetings or conference calls. So business is going on. It's slower on things like permits and that sort of thing, but that reflects the outside world. Employees are using the opportunity to get caught up on, back burner issues that they never get to, as well as their daily work. I think it's true, as somebody who's worked at home and worked on projects with people working at home, that most people end up working more time than they do when they're in the office. So there are fewer distractions. So I think people are just adjusting to that new reality, and we're working on things with the culture all the time of how people can stay in touch using the tools that we have. We've also been taking advantage of the fact that the buildings are empty to do some deep cleaning, which is also important during a time when we're worried about virus spread. If you were in the commissioner's room today, you would be able to tell that the carpets have been cleaned in here just yesterday, and because the smell is still with us, but the carpets look great. So our maintenance crew has been doing things that are difficult to do when people are in the building, and not having to burn overtime to do that. And they've been doing that at the Y as well. Usually the pool is scheduled to be drained and cleaned this summer in July, and instead it's being done now, and some of the repairs that occur every 2 years are being done there. So, we will leave the pool drained, so we'll not be heating that water until the Y opens again. We, in the first 2 weeks last week, we saved about $5,000 on utilities. So there's some savings that we will capture over time here. So one positive note. Most of the questions I'm getting right now are about taxes and tax payments, and when are they going to be due, and what kind of tax relief is going to be there for businesses in particular. I know these will be conversations that we'll have coming up, probably at the Committee of the Whole. We'll be talking about the current state of things, but also about next year's budget. We'll start that conversation. And with certainly the changing environment, that will be a timely and a relevant conversation. The windows in the building are installed on the first floor. There's some finishing work to do, and I told the vendor that they couldn't have somebody here these 2 weeks when it was a stay-at-home order, because they come up from Duluth. And so it's a good time to install the windows because the building's mostly empty, but I'm also concerned about workers that come back and forth to Duluth from that area. And so I'm going to have a conversation with the project manager at St. Germain's about what they can do if they do come back to work, what they're going to do to ensure that that our staff stays as safe as possible with possible exposure from these workers. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to proceed on that yet, but there's still a conversation to be had. And last, we did close the recycling center down for 2 weeks because I felt that the regular processes and the regular way that we did business there, Tim and I had a conversation about that. We felt that the staff was not protected, and we were not able to keep them safe. We closed down for these last week, and this week they've been also doing deep cleaning, letting the backup or the collections sit there for a while, and so, until they were safe to handle. They're catching up with the backlog of those things. We've got them some protective gear, and we also had to check in with our vendor that buys our recycling from us to make sure they were still going to take it. The plan is to open up Monday, and in a more with a different process, probably more reduced hours, and then the items will sit for a couple of days or for the length of time that's appropriate for the type of item, metal and glass longer than paper, before it's processed, and it'll be more circular. We've also installed, the IT staff installed surveillance, security cameras, and so that we can watch for illegal dumping and be able to identify who's doing that. So I think we're more prepared to open up and to keep our staff safe. And with that, I'll ask if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll start with questions from Commissioner Storley or comments for our administrator, interim administrator.
No, I don't, but good to hear things are moving along, Rena. Thanks for helping do that. Appreciate it. Over.
Thank you, Commissioner. Over.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Thank you, Rena, for your work and your updates, and really impressed with the county's response organizationally to the working from home as much as possible. I was also wondering if we could send out a thank you to Arrowhead and any other, Arrowhead Electric or True North rather, and any other partner for getting the broadband here, because the rest of the state doesn't necessarily have the option of working from home, and it's still a pretty unique thing that we have fiber to most every home in the county, and how powerful that is in a time like this. It really enables us to keep working as much as we can, and just maybe now is not the time for that thank you, but at some point it's on my mind. So over.
Thank you.
That's
Mr. DeShaw?
I was just going to say.
Oh, go ahead.
That's a really good reminder. We are very fortunate, and the school certainly now, as they're doing distance learning with students, this is a big deal here, and True North really did do a great job of leadership and getting that out. So they are a great partner. I will make sure that I have a chance to give a call over there and talk to them. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner DeShaw?
No questions.
Commissioner Duker?
Yeah, thank you, Rena, for all of your work in keeping on top of everything. With installing the windows and having them travel here from Duluth, it appears that everything that is out at this point is wearing a mask is the best thing besides washing your hands. We've heard that a million times. And it's not necessarily an N95 mask, it's just limiting the spread of breathing or whatever you want to call it. So, maybe St. Germain's is willing to provide their staff with masks or take some of the donations we have or whatever. I know the crew, when they're out there working, already has gloves and other things on. So obviously having them not here at all eliminates the possibility of spread, but if we want to get the project done and minimize it, maybe that's an opportunity that we can seek out with them. Over.
Thank you for that. I will suggest that to them.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks for that suggestion. I will ask them about that when I talk to them later this week.
I have no questions or comments except thanking you. Anyone else that have any questions or comments for Interim Administrator Rogers? Okay. Well, I'd like to just thank on the part of the board, really thank the community. Just all those critical factors that make our life here going so well in this turbulent time, and just the workers, the systems that are in place. It's very impressive. It makes one proud to live here, and it takes it takes the whole village or community to work together and get us through this. So with that, I would entertain, I guess if there's any more comments, we'll just do one more roll call on any general comments that you have about the pandemic or our response to it. So Commissioner DeShaw, any other comments?
No comments.
Commissioner Duper?
No comments, just a heartfelt thank you. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Commissioner Mills, and I just want to give a thank you and maybe a reminder, just to the community at large, that whereas Minnesotans and Cook County are doing an excellent job in general, that we need to stay diligent and continue to social distance. We don't want to become complacent and continue to wash our hands and wear face masks and just follow the guidelines, and we're going to come out better than most regions, or as well as we can. And I just want to thank everyone for doing their part. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner Starley?
Just appreciate everything that everyone is doing, hanging in there, and we'll hopefully come out better in the future, whenever that will be. Over.
Okay, thank you. I have one question or comment. Where can one get face masks? I'm asking for people that I know and as well as myself. I don't sew. Is there any place that we can get face masks in the community?
This is Grace. I can chime in on that. So we have been receiving through the EOC donations of the hand-sewn masks, and that is the type of mask that is recommended for community use. The N95s and the surgical masks are they're to be reserved for healthcare workers. But the hand-sewn masks, I asked in our briefing yesterday if Kimber would work on getting a figure of how many of the hand-sewn masks the campuses need. So they would be for employees that don't have direct patient contact. And my idea was if we get that figure from the medical facilities, we can then figure out how many additional masks we'd like to request and perhaps find a way to make the donated masks to the EOC if we can get enough of them made available to the public as well. So it's kind of a long answer. It doesn't give you the most direct information, but that's
Sure.
the plan, is to try to find a way to make them freely available to people so that they're not having to seek them out. We just have to figure out a way to figure out how many we need and then how we can get them to people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Myron, you also don't need to know how to sew. You can make them with a bandana, and there are videos out there to do that.
Right.
And then I also have several buffs, which I just fold over 3 times and wear those, and I believe that those are still available to purchase. Over.
Thank you. Yeah.
The CDC also put up those instructions on their website over the weekend. So that's another place. They have no sew instructions as well, but it would be nice if we could make the donated masks available to the community somehow at a later date.
Okay. Yes, I'm aware of those. Thank you. Got some bandanas and stuff. So I think then in closing, I would just like to thank the other commissioners for your cooperation and how we're doing these meetings. We're doing very well. We were sort of a model for that as well in the state. So, and it takes us as a team to do that. And as board chair, I can't do it. We got to work together. And I really thank you for that, and as well as our staff. We've been having very productive meetings in regards to how we're, doing business, and I really thank you all sincerely for that. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to adjourn.
Okay, do we have support or second on this?
Support.
Okay, thank you. Then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you again. Have a good day.